Hello, dear viewers. I welcome you very specially to this episode of your favorite Catholic television program, Everything Catholic. It remains that program where we discuss everything and absolutely anything about the Catholic Church and the Catholic faith. I remain your brother and anchor person always, Reverend Father Boniface Nebo, and as always with
Father Silvanus. Amen.
We have with us today on this session or episode, Reverend Sister Rada Claire Emerom. She is the Vicar General of the Sisters of the Home Visitors of Mary. She also is the personal secretary to the Secretary General of the Catholic Secretariat of Nigeria, and also the National Coordinator, Opus Secretarietatis. That is a scheme of the Catholic Bishops' Conference of Nigeria that takes care of the pension of priests. Sister, you're welcome.
Thank you, Father.
Welcome to the
Thank
program.
you, Father.
Sister is going to focus today, of course. We have as our topic the composition of the church. But on this episode, we have a particular focus on the consecrated persons in the church. Sister, who are consecrated persons in the church?
As you can see, I'm a consecrated person.
Obviously.
And the layman language, consecrated persons are those you call reverend sisters, reverend brothers. But consecrated persons are those who are living the state of life, and this state of life by which they are called in a special way to dedicate their lives to God, especially by the profession of the vows of evangelical councils, and they are poverty, chastity, and obedience, purposely for the sake of the kingdom and for the love of God.
Interesting, interesting. Now, in the church, we hear of consecrated persons and perpetual virgins. Are there distinctions?
Yeah.
If they are, what are they?
Consecrated persons, let's say consecrated life is the big umbrella.
Okay, okay.
It's just like, let's say, a big umbrella that houses the consecrated virgins you're talking about,
Okay,
the religious persons,
okay.
religious life, the institute for secular institutes,
Okay.
and also societies of apostolic life.
Okay.
So the consecrated virgins are those that specifically take on the life or state of life of virginity. They are somehow betrothed to Christ, and they struggle and strive to live out perfectly that life of charity and sanctification of the word.
Great.
But religious, like me, I'm a religious.
Okay.
We take on and vow publicly these evangelical counsels: poverty, chastity, and obedience. And we live in community. Okay. Community life is very, very vital, very key.
Okay.
We live in community. But consecrated virgins might not live in community. They can live individually, and they can also make private vows, private commitments, but in the presence of a diocesan bishop.
Okay.
But religious must make the evangelical councils publicly, and they must live in community. If you see a religious that is not living in community, it's for a very strict purpose.
Okay.
Maybe for study, that the person has to study somewhere. Exactly.
That can happen.
Exactly. It must be agreed by the superiors of the congregation to allow the person to live alone.
For reason.
For very, very strict reason.
Okay.
The Catholic Catechism talks about the religious and those in secular institutes and those in societies of apostolic life. Could you please throw a little more light on these categorizations?
Yeah. Let me take it one after the other. I've already talked about the religious.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Now let me talk about the secular institutes.
Yes.
Secular institutes are those who try to live out this life from within where they are.
Okay.
they might not be bound to vow the evangelical councils.
Really?
They might not be bound to,
Okay.
but they strive to live out this life of charity and this work for the sanctification of the world from within.
Good.
So they can live wherever they want to live. They can live individually. You can see a person who is of a secular institute living alone, renting a house and living alone.
Okay.
But they might come, based on the constitution of their institute, they might come together once in a while in order to remain, retain their fellowship and communion with one another.
Okay.
They come
So something brings them
it
together.
brings them together. But they also work based on their individual professions.
Okay.
Individual professions.
So what about
Yes.
those
Society of Apostolic Life, also those ones focus on the apostolic purpose of their institute. They don't make
Okay.
these evangelical councils,
Councils.
even though there are some that can also make it privately.
Okay.
So these ones, as I said initially, secular institutes and societies of apostolic life, they don't make public vows of these evangelical councils.
So only
Okay.
the religious.
Only the religious,
Religious do.
yes,
Make the public
the
vows.
religious make public vows.
Good.
But could those other ones also choose to make
make.
the public vows?
Based on their constitution.
Okay.
Okay.
I wouldn't really say if they, based on their constitution, because if the canon law has said something, then the local laws can also, canon law I think gives us, leverage for local laws to take place. You should know better, yes.
Thank you very much, Father. Now, in the church, or generally in the society, this word congregation means a gathering of people, but in religious context, it is a gathering of people for worship or a liturgical assembly. But in the church again, there is this
Congregation.
word called congregation. Then we see some persons, like you have just mentioned, living separate lives. Of course, you are veiled just as you are. You belong to a congregation in that context.
Yes.
Could you distinguish? And like you said, they all have different apostolate. Maybe as you distinguish, just give examples for some of these congregations as separate from a gathering of believers
church.
for worship. Yes.
As I said, congregations can also be termed institutes.
Beautiful.
Just we are talking about institute for consecrated life. Yes. So these institutes are also congregations, and it's all the bringing is still, denotes bringing together of different people to live together.
Good.
So if they are not living together in a community, we might not really call it, or if they are not coming together as a community, we might not really call it congregation, because congregation still means, just like you have said, bringing together. Yes, bringing together, coming together. So now, my congregation is Sisters Home Visitors of Mary, and you know that different congregations, based on the initial inspiration of the foundress or founder, has specific way they want to
So there's a
do their
lifestyle.
work. Yes, and they want to live and to do their work. Because if there are no differences, there won't be need for many congregations that we have today.
Sister, help us understand these differences a little. Apart from their habits,
Yes.
which like what you wear now, yours is more or less like something
So you
familiar.
don't have it
to
like this.
outside.
What is one, not this kind of behavior.
I watched I saw a video, and some sisters in one gathering, and I don't know if they are actually Catholic sisters or they are just dressed like sisters, and then the man asked what they were wearing. The pastor asked what they were wearing. It's the habit, and the man started talking about habit like behavior. So habit we are talking about is not behavior, but the
kind of
robe,
person.
kind
the robe,
of
the
the
vest,
dress.
or you want to
of
say
the
costume.
religious, So apart from your different habits, some white, some blue, some brown, some a mixture of colors. Apart from those habits, are there significant differences between those in the consecrated life?
I think...
and let's also say, apart from their apostolates and habits.
I don't think the habits, determines the apostolate.
Mm-hmm.
The foundress or founder of a congregation normally decides, and they come together to choose what their habit should be. Like I said, initially, somebody who wants to found a congregation might have an inspiration from the Holy Spirit to say, I want to do education, but I want to do this education to the poor, to the less privileged alone.
Reach out.
Yes, to reach out to the less privileged, those who don't have money, those who don't have. Some people might say, okay, we want to do our education in the aspect of giving a holistic formation for young people. So it all depends on what the inspiration is.
Okay.
But mine, I will tell you that we don't have a particular habit. My congregation, Sisters, Home Visitors of Mary, we don't have a particular habit like the DDL, Daughters of Divine Love, they wear blue, and white, handmaids of the Child Jesus, they wear white. But we don't have a particular habit.
So you choose what
Why?
you wear?
We choose what you wear, which is, but not any
Decent.
type of color. Very decent, and maybe blue are ladies' color. Because when we were founded in order to get to the suburbs. It was founded in America in 1949, where there were many migrants to America, and they didn't know where to go. Yes, they didn't know where to go. So what happened was that we had to reach out to them. And when you are going to that kind of place and you are on a habit, what happens? They might just start disappearing. But if you are like them, you come in and you can reach out to them. And also, exactly, and we also work a lot with children. And if you're on white and a child, especially those in the suburbs, very poor children, if they are running to you as dirty they are, if you're on white, you might be, hey, this child will pet. If I go like this and children can jump on me, run to me, I will not mind. So that is where the whole thing came, that we can be on whatever we like to work.
Thank you very sincerely, sister. So summarily, well, every congregation has very key reasons for the choice of the habits they use. But very integral to all is the need for integration into the life of those to be ministered to.
Exactly.
We're going to hang it on there as we go on break. Please stay with us. It's still Everything Catholic.
Everything Catholic, a program that discusses anything and everything about the Catholic Church. Faith, doctrines, morals, canon law, church governance, papal documents, you name it. As long as it is Catholic, it shall be discussed. Join Father Ames Silvanus and Father Nebo Boniface, two priests passionate about teaching the true faith of the Catholic Church, as their hosts bishops, priests, religious and distinguished laymen and women, to discuss and simplify the wealth of the Church's teachings. Everything Catholic, showing on Catholic television, CTV. Everything Catholic, teaching the faith.
Welcome back. It's still the program Everything Catholic. We still have with us Sister Claire Emerum of the Sisters, Home Visitors of Mary. Before we went on break, Sister anchored our discussion on the fact that for every congregation we see, there is always a fundamental reason for the choice of the habits they use. But important of all is the need for integration into the lives of those to be reached out to or to be ministered to. Now, while we're discussing earlier, Sister, there was this recurring word, evangelical councils. Evangelical councils. We want to ask, what are they?
Evangelical.
Yes.
Evangelical councils, as I said initially, are the vows the religious take. And they are poverty, chastity, and obedience. Yes. So maybe I might say they are called evangelical councils. Evangelical might be, it comes from evangelism, evangelist, evangelization, in the aspect of it is living out the gospel values in a radical way, in a very radical way. That somebody in our life situation, you know that nobody wants to be poor. Nobody wants to be poor. I've told people I vowed poverty, they will start casting and binding. God forbid, sister, you are rich in Jesus' name. I said, this is exactly what I vowed. I know, because Christ lived this life, holistically. Christ was poor. He chose to be poor. It's not that he is poor, but he chose to be poor. Born in a manger, under a carpenter, everything about him, chastity, borrowed. Exactly. He didn't even have a place he lived, to lay his head. Then the chastity, Christ's chastity is his other name, pure. Yeah, that is him. He's God, but he's man too, and he was man without sin. That is the difference between him with us, because he was without sin. Also, the obedience in Philippians 2:8, they tell us what? That Christ humbled himself and became obedient, even to accepting death on a cross. You understand? So the point is that we are following Christ. The religious or the consecrated person chooses to follow Christ more closely. It is somehow like a deepening of the first call we got at our baptism. Every Christian is called at the baptism to follow Christ. So this is the deepening of the call. And also, Christ also proposed these evangelical counsels to everyone. Everyone. Christ proposed this because let's say a married person. A married person has to live out this. Even chastity, faithfulness to your spouse is also chastity. And the aspect, good, exactly. And the poor in spirit, which Christ preached in the Beatitudes, and the aspect of obedience to human and to God. Obedience to human and to God. If you could also remember that it's also in Matthew 19:21, I think Christ also brought out that issue when he talked about talk to the guy, that young guy that he said, go and sell everything. Sell everything and come follow me. The guy ran away. It is not easy. It's really not easy. It's just by the grace of God. And that's why we call it a call and it's a vocation. You have to choose it. Nobody forces you to do that.
That's right. Yes. Sister, I'm going to ask you a question now that appears very simple and maybe funny. But one that I've been asked several times. Maybe as a sister, a religious, you answer this directly to many others for many others who may have the same question. And several times I've been asked the question, what is the job or the role of sisters in the church? And some people they ask me, apart from baking altar bread and distributing communion at mass, what else do sisters do? Let's hear this directly from what exactly do sisters do besides baking bread and distributing? I'm sure many people would like to know.
You know that it is said that consecrated life is a visible sign of the life and holiness of the church. It is a very integral part of the life of the church. I want to say the church cannot do without the religion.
Provide a little background to this question. People see priests. They see what priests do. Most times they see sisters only at Mass on Sundays. After Mass on Sundays, they don't get to see some sisters again till the next Sunday. And the only time they are seeing sisters is when they are at Mass, they distribute communion, and then they know that some have bookshops. And then they sell sacramentals and all that. That's one of the reasons why these questions come up.
Yes, Father.
Help people out there to understand what exactly sisters do.
The sisters actually do a lot.
Good.
Especially in education. When you are talking about holistic education or Catholic schools, you get the sisters there. When there are sister doctors, there are sister accountant. I'm an accountant. I'm also a trained catechist. You see my writings, good. So the point, we are into catechesis. We are into clinics, medicals, education. we are more at the grassroots.
And to even add to that, sisters too, you know, you will find in many of our orphanages, you see, because of the care, the motherly nature of a sister.
Exactly.
You see them embracing that apostolate, reaching out to the poorest of the poor and the needy.
That's what I'm talking about, the grassroots. The grassroots, which more to the grassroots, Father.
Okay.
Yes, actually, in fostering justice and peace, and the aspect of reaching out to the poor and the marginalized, and the vulnerable in the society.
Exactly.
We actually
I'm sure our viewers are happy
At least
hearing
becoming
this.
enlightened more.
Yeah,
The work of a sister is not just on Sunday.
No, that is just the little thing we do on Sunday. Like me, I work in the Catholic Secretariat of Nigeria with the Bishops' Conference.
Yeah.
So, am I baking cake? So it all depends. It's just a very fraction of the sisters, because somebody must bake cake for us to eat. So that's why you see one or two that bakes cake, and somebody must, you know, we must help the priests. We are collaborators. We are collaborators in the work of God, and that is why we are there to help out. But any aspect of evangelization, the aspect of living out, reaching out to the poor and the marginalized, you call the sisters, because the habit alone is a sort of witnessing.
Yes.
You know, when you see a reverend sister, you know, that's just witnessing. And that is why this life is a life of witnessing, a life of real service. Totally, 247. Life of service and life of commitment to Christ.
Sister, supposing a young girl wants to join a religious congregation, what are the processes?
Very briefly.
Yeah, sure. The processes depends on different congregations too. But I will talk from my.
There should be some general procedures.
Yes, at least the person should be up to 17 years, as stipulated. You know, the canon law. Then the person should at least, you know, why we said that the person must have finished secondary school, and you have your certificate requirements, all those subjects well passed, in case the congregation wants you to further your studies. It wouldn't be a problem. Exactly. And so that you can also speak English, because there's a place you will go and you will not be able to communicate and evangelize with the people.
To English-speaking regions?
Yes, exactly. I'm talking about our contest in here, our contest here. And also the person must be baptized.
Yeah, of course.
The person must be baptized, because if you are not baptized, you have not become a priest, a Catholic, to talk of being a sister. So those are the basics.
Father, what are the sacramental requirements? Baptism, confirmation, Holy Eucharist, what?
That's
just
all.
Baptism,
confirmation, Holy Eucharist. The initial, those sacraments of initiation. Yes.
Well, thank you very much, dear viewers, for remaining with us always. It's been an interesting one with Sister Claire Emerom of the Home Visitor Sisters of Mary. You will discover that this is really a massive aspect of the church that will continue to unpack, and is being on the composition of the church with particular focus on the consecrated life. Be with us always on this station as we continue to journey with you to understand better anything and everything about the Catholic Church. I remain Reverend Father Boniface Nebo, and
I am Father Silvanus Ame. See you next week.
So we hope to see your adverts and sponsorship coming. If you have questions, suggestions, recommendations, use the lines you see on your screen to reach us. God bless you and keep keeping safe.